Senator Harris says she's proud of her record as a prosecutor and that she'll be a prosecutor president, but I'm deeply concerned about this record.
When she was Attorney General, and this was my biggest concern, her office fought tooth and nail to uphold wrongful convictions.
There are too many examples to cite, but she put over 1,500 people in jail for marijuana violations and then laughed about it when she was asked if she ever smoked marijuana.
Have you ever smoked?
I have.
Okay. Like
and I inhale. I did inhale.
She blocked evidence that would have freed an innocent man from death row until the courts forced her to do so.
Where the Supreme Court of California ordered her to produce the evidence that was exculpating to somebody sitting up on death row that she had hit. They did that over and over and over again with her hiding this evidence.
She kept people in prison beyond their sentences to use them as cheap labor for the state of California.
Despite a Supreme Court order that she released 5,000 prisoners of nonviolent drug crimes who were illegally in California jails, she kept them in there saying that we needed them for firefighting.
The worst human beings you will ever find are career prosecutors.
They destroyed evidence that would have exonerated Kevin Cooper.
Kevin Cooper was accused of murdering 4 people. The only survivor was an 8-year-old boy named Josh.
Because his throat was cut, he could not talk. He pointed to letters and numbers on a board indicating that there had been 3 or 4 killers and that they had been white.
Asked several times, Josh gave the same answer.
He responded that there were 3 people.
3 people when things went crazy.
Right.
We were in a hospital when Cooper's picture came on. I said, Josh, do you recognize that man? And he said no.
Witnesses said 3 disorderly white men were at a bar after the murders wearing bloody clothing and were driving a vehicle matching the stolen vehicle from the crime scene.
A woman turned into the sheriff's office a pair of coveralls that were caked in blood. During Cooper's preliminary hearing, the deputy destroyed the coveralls, threw them in a dumpster.
Hair was recovered from the victim's hands, indicating a struggle. The hair was light brown and did not match Cooper. They did find Cooper's blood on a shirt near the crime scene, but they also found EDTA, a chemical preservative indicating that Cooper was framed. They also found the blood was from multiple people.
They liquidated all the evidence of the intruders. But I can tell you this, they never found one hair of a black person at this crime scene.
Thomas Parker, a deputy for the FBI of Los Angeles, concluded the evidence was planted, he was framed, the cops lied on the stand. Kamala Harris refused to allow Cooper, a man on death row now, DNA testing and showed no interest in the case. Harris later said, "I feel awful about this."
She could have demanded DNA testing in Cooper's case. Now, Kevin Cooper is on death row.
I was arrested for the murder of my friend Sal Kuka, and I was ultimately wrongfully convicted for his murder and framed by the San Francisco Police Department in the offices of Kamala Harris.
Jamal Truelove was convicted of shooting and killing his friend in July of 2007 based solely on a single eyewitness who couldn't identify him in a lineup.
This witness was terrified for her life because Jamal and his family had threatened her when none of that was true. And in fact, this witness had gotten about $65,000 to relocate based on her fantasy fear.
Harris credited the brave witness who stepped forward from the crowd for the conviction. The cops tasked with finding the killer framed Truelove, and he spent nearly 7 years behind bars before his conviction was overturned. Kamala Harris laughed when Truelove was convicted.
And I'll never forget when I turned around and I looked and I seen Kamala Harris, you know, we locked eyes this one time and she laughed. She literally just like kind of bust out laughing.
Truelove received a $13.1 million settlement from the city of San Francisco. Harris's prosecutors deliberately withheld evidence in the case of George Gage. Prosecutors in this case hid and misrepresented the evidence that might have exonerated him.
It was his stepdaughter Marion who accused him of sexually abusing her, and the case turned on Marion's testimony. It turned out after the verdict that the prosecutor had suppressed a lot of material about Marion, including medical records and a note from her own mother saying, "My daughter is a pathological liar who lives her lies."
The only reason why he sits in prison in San Quentin State Prison at age 76 is because the state has saw it fit to not disclose the most material information on the only witness that they had against them.
Rather than acknowledge that this really terrible thing had happened, that this prosecutor had held back information that might have swayed the verdict, what Harris's attorneys went into court and did was say, look, George Gage, who had been forced to act as his own lawyer, didn't raise his claim in exactly the right way, and so for this technical reason, you should affirm that conviction. It went to oral argument, and the judges were very concerned about that position, told the deputy to go back and talk to his supervisors to try to resolve the case, which was a signal to really get rid of it and do the right thing. And instead, Harris's office doubled down, and George Gage is currently 80 years old. He is serving a effective death in prison sentence.
The state does not want to disclose those documents. I'm not sure why. If there's nothing in those documents that would be not favorable to Mr. Gage, why not just produce them? Why not simply produce them to defense counsel? The state fought so hard, the prosecutor here, who, by the way, was going to become a judge, right, January of the following year, fought so hard to keep those records away, fought so hard to keep away the police reports where Marion had made inconsistent statements. Whatever he could, he did to make sure that Mr. Gage is convicted of a crime without the jury having the opportunity to really determine the credibility of the main witness.
Kamala Harris turned a blind eye and refused to prosecute clergy members accused of sexually abusing children. Harris inherited a collection of personal files involving allegations of sexual abuse by priests and employees of the San Francisco Archdiocese.
We were introduced to Helen Ann and another DA's assistant who told us they virtually had all these boxes, about like a room full of files that they had gathered and collected and subpoenaed from the Diocese of San Francisco on all these priests. Bishop Levada at that time was the highest ranking bishop in the United States. Then he became cardinal. So this was the top guy. This was the kingpin in the United States. And we had a champion here that was going to go after him. We thought, well, this is going to go somewhere. These guys are going to be punished. They're going to be held accountable. They're going to be prosecuted.
District Attorney.
In 2004, Kamala Harris was elected. Everything just went down the tubes. Her participation in going after clergy or predators of the Catholic Church or bishops who had enabled these people was less than zero.
Harris refused to pursue child molestation criminal cases against Catholic priests. According to the victims, when they asked for help with their civil cases against the molesters, Harris covered up the evidence. On top of that, Harris received substantial campaign donations from people and organizations associated with the accused molesters and their defense.
Harris's office also tried to prevent nonviolent prisoners from being released after the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that California's overcrowded prisons violated inmates' constitutional rights.
Harris's legal team argued that if certain potential parolees were given a faster track out of prison, it would negatively affect the prison's labor programs, including one that allowed certain inmates to fight California's wildfires for about $2 a day. They argued that releasing these nonviolent inmates would severely impact fire camp participation, a dangerous outcome while California was in the middle of a difficult fire season and severe drought. They continued, draining the prisons of minimum custody inmates would deplete the labor force both internally and in local communities where low-level, nonviolent offenders worked for pennies on the dollar, collecting trash and tending to city parks. 2 months later, Harris told BuzzFeed she was shocked by the argument and said she would be looking into it. Before Steve Mnuchin was nominated by Trump to Secretary of Treasury, he gained the nickname the Foreclosure King due to the mass amount of homeowners he foreclosed on. Mnuchin, along with 6 other billionaires including George Soros, bought IndyMac for pennies in 2009, renamed it One West, and headquartered it in Pasadena, California. One West rushed delinquent homeowners out of their homes, illegally backdated an estimated 99.56% of documents, and the California Attorney General's office uncovered thousands of violations and predicted further investigation would uncover thousands more. One West also obstructed the investigation by ordering third parties to refuse to comply with state subpoenas. Among their harsh, repugnant, shocking, and repulsive behavior, as one judge described, One West locked out a homeowner during a blizzard. They foreclosed on a 90-year-old woman whose payment was 27 cents short, and they foreclosed on an estimated 36,000 homeowners while initiating 45,000 more foreclosures. In a deposition, Vice President Erica Johnson Seck revealed she robo-signed 6,000 foreclosure-related papers per week. She also admitted to not reading the documents before signing them.
There were approximately 1,200 counts of indictments returned against Mnuchin and One West Bank in various counties in California. Well, Mnuchin and Soros financed and arranged and sponsored Kamala to run for Attorney General of California. They got her elected. She got in, and using the authority she had, she promptly consolidated all 5,200 counts and dismissed them.
Kamala Harris's office, without any explanation, declined to prosecute the case, saying, "It's a decision my office made." Mnuchin gave $2,000 to Harris's campaign in 2016, and Soros maxed out his contribution in 2015.
So we are putting parents on notice. If you fail to take responsibility for your kids, we are going to make sure that you face the full force and consequences of the law.
She went off on this campaign to lock parents up, some of whom actually were shown to have dropped their children off at the school, but they played hooky, so she was putting them in jail.
So I decided I was going to start prosecuting parents for truancy.
One case involved a mother, Sheree Peoples, whose daughter had a chronic disease.
I have to go to trial for truancy because my daughter has sickle cell and she missed a lot of school. It was 2 police officers in front of my door. So they said, "Are you Sheree Peoples?" I said, "Yes." And they told me I was under arrest.
And they went over there and I said, "When you go over there, look really mean."
She was arrested at her house while the press took pictures. She spent 2 years in court, lost her job, and was evicted from her home.
It's kind of truant children thing made me fucking sick.
Awful.
She went after the parents of truant children and threatened them with jail time.
There was a big crime lab scandal whereby there was a lab technician who was using the drugs rather than testing them. And as a result, many, many convictions became tainted. And it turned out that her office had known for months, top attorneys had, and had not disclosed that information to the defense. And when a judge found out, she became quite incensed and wrote an opinion castigating Harris for allowing this to happen.
Harris failed to inform defense attorneys, which she was required to do so by law. One judge wrote, "She failed to disclose information that clearly should have been disclosed." Harris ended up dismissing around 1,000 drug-related cases due to the drug lab scandal.
Your opponent, Ron Gold, has said that he is for the legalization of marijuana recreationally. Your thoughts on that?
That he is entitled to his opinion.
She had a reputation for giving out the stiffest sentences in the United States of America for simple possession of marijuana in San Francisco, for God's sakes.
She did prosecute almost, I think, 1,900 marijuana cases. Those folks had permanent records until they were wiped away by our past DA.